we need to have a bit of a chat, because if you are thinking of moving to Sicily, there are a few things you're going to need to brace yourself for. And in this video, I want to outline some pros and cons of living here in Sicily, just to give you some food for thought so that you can really decide if this is the best part of Italy for you to move to. Now, you might be wondering, why is this video titled if you're planning to move to Sicily and not if you're planning to move to South Italy? Well, let me explain. I have lived here in South Italy for the past 6 years. I spent 4 years living in Salerno, and I have spent the past 2 years living here in Palermo, the capital city of Sicily. And let me tell you, Sicily is unlike any other part of Italy, which is the reason I have given this video this particular title, because there are a few things that we need to talk about and why I say this as well. So we're going to start with the cons. The first is bureaucracy. Now, Italy is renowned for its complicated, archaic bureaucratic system. There's no denying it. However, you will find parts of Italy where it is slightly better, a bit more efficient. I mean, in Salerno, I didn't really have any real problems with my bureaucracy. I actually had a pretty smooth ride with it. But that all changed when I moved here to Palermo, and I did a video right here which will give you some tips to survive the bureaucracy here, because I promise you, if you cannot survive the bureaucracy, you will not stick it out. But here in Sicily, I've had like some of my worst bureaucratic nightmares. I've had a 6-month wait for my residency to be changed, a process which should only take 40 days. I have also had plenty of unanswered PEC emails during that entire process. And the PEC email is supposed to be some kind of like a recorded email that is supposed to be responded to within 30 days. There we have it. And then not only that, but it's also been incredibly difficult to make any kind of an appointment. Now, just to highlight the difference, I saw a reel the other day from a content creator who lives in the north of Italy, and she was talking about the bureaucracy and how it's slowly improving and that you can now make appointments online. And she gave an example of a calendar and the available times for those appointments. I had to laugh, and I'll tell you why, because in June of this year, I tried to make an appointment with the Tari office online. Now, when I first moved here, so I feel like I need to go back a little step actually, because when I first moved here back in September or August, it really was July, August 2022, I was blown away because they had like an online portal for the residency. And I was like, this is incredible. Salerno didn't have that. Well, you know, it was my mistake because I had this Brexit paperwork and things like this. They didn't really know how to manage it online. But my boyfriend, who is Sicilian, too had problems with this system, and they hadn't processed his change of residency either. So it doesn't always work. But what made me laugh was the Tari office, because in June of this year, we tried to make an appointment with the Tari office because the offices do not communicate with each other here. The residency office is supposed to speak to the rubbish tax office when you move here, but we still haven't received anything. And so we were taking matters into our own hands as good citizens to be like, excuse me, we need to have our rubbish tax bill. Anyway, again, you've got a portal to make an appointment online, all well and good. We went to make that appointment. The first available appointment at the Tari office was 12 months later, in June 2025. And this is what you are dealing with here. Like, I sometimes laugh so much when I see videos from other people talking about life in North Italy, because I just think if you lived here in Sicily, you'll be like, where the hell have I gone? Because things here are done so differently compared to other parts of Italy. It's literally incredible. But the bureaucracy is something that is difficult in all of Italy, I will say, because there is so much that you have to understand and kind of wade your way through to get to the bottom of it. But here in Sicily, add a few extra degrees of stress to it, and I feel like you'll be better prepared. Now, another con of kind of living here in Sicily has to do with the mindset and mentality of people. I'm going to be really honest, and I say this with the greatest of respect. These are my personal observations. I read so many comments of people saying, well, if you don't like Italy, go back home. And, you know, like, well, I've been to London and London's not perfect. Listen, you can slate London. I'm the first to tell you that London is a problematic city. I'm the first to tell you that it's blimmin' expensive to do anything in London, and that really it is starting to go a bit downhill, especially with the new government in power. So listen, you can say whatever you like about London. I promise you it's not going to ruin my day. But I will say one thing. The mentality of people here is something else entirely. I cannot understand how people here in Palermo treat public spaces, how they throw their litter on the street, how they cannot even be bothered to call up the council and arrange for the free collection of bulky items of furniture, and instead decide to decorate the pavements with their refrigerators and sofas. It's insane. I cannot get over the mindset of how people drive and park here in Palermo. If you want to see evidence of inconsiderateness in humans, you need to come to Palermo and try to cross the road. Not only do the people not want to stop for you, but also if you're lucky enough to even make it onto the crossing, because usually some kind of donut has parked their car right on the crossing, so you can't fit onto the crossing yourself, especially if you've got a buggy or a wheelchair or you're disabled or something like this. You have to go right out into the road itself just to cross. Like, it is so difficult sometimes. And then you have the people that like double park, so that if you've parked properly on the side of the road, you're stuck until whoever was lazy enough not to find a proper space comes out of whatever shop or office they're in to move their car. It's difficult. And then we have the problem of course, the government here, the regional government, trying to improve things, trying to do good by this place. And the people here just keep repelling it. And I don't want to hear about the history of Sicily. And I don't want to hear about how it's been an island that has struggled, because we are in 2024. If we keep reciting the historical stories about how troubled this region is and all the wealth went to the north of Italy, can you please tell me when we're ever going to improve? Because I promise you, if we keep talking about the past, we live in the past. We keep recreating the past. If you want a different future, you've got to look at what your life is like now, in the present. Because it's all I ever hear. Well, you know, we used to be such a wealthy region. You go around, you see evidence of this in the villas. But then I see people who do things that I cannot explain. So one of the improvements that has been kind of rolled out across Palermo are these big recycling centres, and predominantly they're for plastic bottles. And the idea is that you will deposit your plastic bottles in these recycling centres and you get given a credit. I think it's onto your card, to say, you know, thank you, as an incentive to help you to recycle. And, you know, I've started to see them pop up around Palermo. But I read the other day that in a particular neighbourhood in Palermo, this machine has been vandalised maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't understand. Ain't no one can help the island if you can't even look after it yourself, you know? Like, where is the personal responsibility? Where is the personal responsibility for pet owners, for people who allow their dogs to kind of do their toilet on the streets and then they don't bother to pick it up? Like, I have a dog now. Trust me when I tell you, if Tina goes to the toilet outside, you will not see a trace of it on the pavement when she's finished. But that's different because I have a different mentality. I think about other people that have to use the same space, and I don't just think about myself. Because trust me, there are so many people here that just think about themselves. People who take up the entire pavements when they're walking. They don't think that the pavement might be needed by another person. People who drive along without using indicators or without even looking. No, they don't think that they might need to share the road with somebody else. Trust me, the mentality here is something peculiar. Like, I lived in Salerno, and yes, there might be some kind of peculiarities there, of course, but here it's something else. And I live in the capital city of this island. Now, I'm sure it can be different in different parts of Sicily, because Sicily is a big island, by the way. It might not look so on paper, but it is. And so, you know I've started to explore different parts of Sicily, but there is a different mentality here. And, you know, it can be difficult sometimes if you're coming from a different country to adapt to this, which is why I'm telling you about this and why I've spent so long talking about it now, because you've got to consider this in your decision as to whether or not this is the place for you to live. Absolutely. And I would say as well, you've got to consider that you're on an island, and there has been a bit of a battle recently with the cost of flights, because the cost of flights to and from Sicily have jumped up tenfold in the past few months. And, you know, there has been talk of trying to reduce the cost for residents of Sicily, but then I don't know how well that scheme is really being implemented. And it's just becoming a little bit problematic for people to leave the island and go to other parts of Italy without having to pay an arm and a leg to do so. So this is something else that you need to factor in. Living on an island does also mean that you might have reduced services at different points of the year. For example, when I go back to the UK, I always fly into London Gatwick. It's the most convenient airport for me to use. However, from the months of October until March, I cannot get a direct flight to London Gatwick from Palermo because they stop operating that service. They only operate it in the peak months of spring and summer and into early autumn. And so for this reason, this limits me somewhat, and I have to go to London Stansted, which, as most of you know, isn't near London, if I want to go to the UK. So these are other things that you have to factor in. I do feel like, if I were living on the mainland, I would have more direct flights throughout the year. It seems to be that when you're here in Sicily, it does operate sometimes to a more seasonal service to some places. So you do have to factor that in. And also, I would say you have to factor in that you are living in a tourist hotspot, for sure. Any part of Sicily is a tourist hotspot. And so this means that in the summer, it's going to get very, very busy, very expensive. And, if you yourself want to go away during those months, you're going to find that things get booked up very quickly. And so, I have to be honest, things are changing here in South Italy. I was looking the other day at some places near Salerno, Naples, and the cost, wow, I was blown away. The price has gone up so much in the past 2 years. Like I'm telling you, I think it's because now more people are discovering these parts of South Italy and they're becoming more popular. And we've got, of course, the airport in Salerno. This all adds value to things. But a lot of places are also Airbnbs. So I can see why people are saying about over tourism, because a lot of places are only being let out on short-term lets. So it is really, really interesting to see how South Italy is changing in this sense. But here in Sicily, you do have to consider that, because there will be certain areas, certain parts of Sicily that get extremely busy in the summer. As such, if you plan to rent a home yourself, it's probably going to be very, very difficult to do so. Homes to rent on long-term basis in these areas are probably going to be more transitory leases, because people want them free for the summer when they can make a lot more money. So there is just a lot to think about when you're living here in Sicily. It's a beautiful place, and I'm going to talk about some of the beautiful things now, but they are things that I have really, really noticed that are different here in Sicily compared to when I lived in Salerno. Now, when it comes to the pros, let's begin with the beaches. The seawater here in Sicily is second to none. There are some exquisite beaches, and I haven't even explored half of them, and I cannot wait to continue my exploration. But there are some beautiful, beautiful places to visit here in Sicily, and I promise you, to live near the sea or to live within close distance to the sea is a beautiful thing. And yes, as much as North Italy might have the efficiency, they don't have the sea. And trust me, it is something that everybody talks about when they talk about Sicily. They talk about the sea. It's one of the first things that comes to their mind. So that is a huge, huge pro. A second huge pro as well, the fact that the food here is exquisite. Now, this is pretty much nationwide. I would say all Italian food is delicious, but there is something about Sicilian food that is amazing. Particularly here in Palermo, we've got the street food, we've got the beautiful dolce, the desserts. Oh my goodness, I don't think I'll ever get to sample every typical dish from Sicily the entire time that I will be here. This is the way it is here. Food is the beating heart of this island, and I promise you, you will try some delicious, delicious food when you are here, and if you decide to move here. And this is something else that you need to think about. If cuisine is something really important to you and you want to live somewhere with good variety of food, this is the place to come. I would also say as well, tied into that is the fact that Palermo especially feels very multicultural. There are many, many different cultures that live here. People come here on Erasmus visits. People come here from different parts of the world. And so there's a very cosmopolitan feel to Palermo as a city centre, I would suggest, compared to Salerno, where I lived before, which felt a little bit more closed in that way. So if you enjoy having that diversity, I think that you get to feel it here in Palermo especially. It's not to say it's the same in all parts of Sicily, but certainly in the capital city here, yes. You definitely feel that there is a rich variety of culture, and as such that reflects in the cuisines and restaurants that are available. And yeah, so that's another huge pro as well. I would also say in terms of pros, the weather. We are in, well, late November. I'm wearing this, but it's a thin jumper. Under this, I have a summer dress, which is sleeveless, and that's it. Like, the weather here is mild, and, you know, it's maybe 20 degrees at the moment, maybe a little under, which is fresh by Sicilian standards, yes. But for me, I'm telling you, it's mild. Like, in the UK, I've been reading the reports about snow. So, you know, consider we are so close to Christmas now and the weather is like this. This is a huge pro for living here, particularly if you cannot stand the really, really, really cold winters. Now, there are parts of Sicily that do get very cold. I spoke about it in this video here as to why I chose city life over kind of living in the countryside, for example. But you will find that the smaller villages, places at a higher altitude, do get pretty cold in the winter. So you can still find that here in Sicily. But if you base yourself in a big city, generally speaking, it's pretty mild year round. You have a couple of months, generally January through to March, where the weather is a bit colder and a bit more unpredictable. So you tend to get a bit more rain in that period. But other than that, it's magnificent. Now, of course, the summers are extremely hot, so that is something that you do need to consider. But if you want to have balmy temperatures, even at this time of year, this is definitely the place for you. Here in Sicily, there definitely feels like there's a lower cost of living. Now, things are changing. I have mentioned this before, but for what you get for your money in terms of accommodation, you pay less here than you would on the mainland, for sure. I think it does depend on where you are in kind of mainland Italy. But as I've just said to you before, the prices of accommodation in Naples and Salerno have skyrocketed in these past 2 years. So for what you'd pay for a teeny tiny little studio in Salerno, you could probably get like a 2-bedroom house here in Palermo or in somewhere else in Sicily. So you do have to consider this. I think you do maybe get a bit more for your money here. But then, of course, there are some cons that you have to factor in with living in Sicily. It's not an easy place to live, but there is that you need to also think about, you know, like the cost of living in terms of accommodation is generally cheaper here. So that can mean that you could get more for your money than you might if you chose to live somewhere like more central, like Rome or definitely Milan. You will not get anything like you would here in Palermo or in Milan, for sure, for that kind of money. And I think also something else that you need to think about is here in Sicily, there is literally something for everyone. It really depends where you are. If you like the classic Southern Italian charm, you might consider visiting Ragusa or Modica. They are beautiful, beautiful parts of Italy, and they definitely retain that really charming Sicilian kind of architecture and style. If you want to experience kind of cosmopolitan city life, you'd come here to Palermo. If you want the beauty of the sea, you might consider Cefalù or San Vito lo Capo. There are so many different experiences you can have here and so many different ways of life that you can experience. And I think this is something that makes Sicily very special as an island, because no two parts of Sicily really are the same, and you can travel around and have a completely different experience in, you know, all of the different towns and cities that you can find here in Sicily, and that is really, really special. So overall, I think Sicily is a great place to live, but I think it's not for everyone, and that is why I'm always so honest with you on this channel about life here, because I know that some people get a bit agitated by my comments, but it's just giving it to you as it is. You know, the truth can be a bitter pill to swallow sometimes when it comes to living here in Italy. I'm not about to tell you something that isn't going to benefit you. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know so that you can make an informed decision for yourself. And I have to be honest with you, do I regret moving to Palermo? Not at all. Will it be my forever home? Who knows? But for now, I'm very happy here, and I'm very happy living here in this particular part of Italy. You take from life and you take from every experience what you can. And for me, Palermo is teaching me some of my greatest lessons, and I'm here to learn them. I'll see you in the next video.